Hello, it's Bagoon back with another video in my Asian Mythology Learn to Triggers Basics series. This time we're going to be going through a few message, counter, objective and further text effects to expand on the chat commands we've learnt in previous videos. So, I've mentioned the objectives tab earlier before and you've seen me write some text in here. This time I'm going to show you how they actually work. So, to start off with, we use the objective trigger. You'll find two numbers here, mission 1 and ID 1. On our objectives menu we've got objective 1, and if we keep adding we get objective 2. I'm just going to put the numbers in there so we know exactly which number corresponds to which. So let's just keep it as 1 first of all and see what happens. So you'll see we now have our objective bar and it's number 1. You can see there's also the hints section which you can code in the objectives window. There's a scenario name, scenario information, and then the spotlight which nobody ever looks at. What happens if you try and alter these values? So if I use ID number 2 instead of mission number 1, we get objective number 2. If we go back and use mission 2, you'll find that not much changes. It's just number 2. If we put this scenario to the test, we'll get the first objective. If we then copy the same trigger but put it on lower priority so that there's a timer, what you can see initially happens on the first run, we've got our objective there, it's marked as incomplete. By repeating that trigger, the objective is now completed. That's how we're going to use our maps to show that objectives are complete or pending. Next we can look at the overlay text effect. This is again something that's going to display a text message for your players to see. You can see it comes as this white, quite big text there. We can customize this in quite a number of ways. So not only can we change the message, we can change where on the screen it is and how long it lasts for. The width isn't really something that's used very often, so if, for example, we want to stay away from the default position and have our text in the middle of the screen at the height of the God Powers bar, we're going to do values fairly similar to that, and lo and behold, it's roughly where we want it. You do need to tinker with these values. It centers the text from the left side, unfortunately, so if you're changing the length of the text, you will find that it doesn't center and it instead just continues on. We can also change the color of the text. This is a new feature in the extended edition, so what we'd use is the set overlay text color effect. And this allows us to specify some red, green and blue values. So for this example we're going to orange. What I'm doing here is firing the text event so it runs immediately after we change the colour. This is because although on single player you could get away with this, online there is a slight delay. So if you were to do this and then immediately have your text afterwards, the colour change would not occur. You'll see that this works fine on single player as we've now got some nice orange text there. If I wanted to change it, I could make it red, and there's plenty of other colours that you can experience and play around with. Next, we're looking at counters and fake counters. I'm going to start with fake counter first of all. So what this trigger does is it creates what should be a fake counter that appears over here on the right side of the screen. You can see that just said text, it didn't have any numbers, so you can specify numbers. You've got pretty much free text range, so you could have a target, an objective, most things you want. It also supports colour and icons in there as well. You can only have one fake counter active at any one point, and if you wanted to remove the counter, you'd use the fake counter clear effect. So this would mean our counter is going to appear and then it's going to be cleared. In addition to this, we can have more lines of counter using the counter add timer trigger. This one creates an actual number that's going to count down, followed by a message that goes before it. You'll see as I've got both of them here, I've got my fake counter above, and then I've got my counter timer there. What you can do with this is you can specify a few additional properties. So you can link in a trigger to fire after the countdown ends. You can mess about with the numbers there to get different times. You could even have it starting at number 1 rather than number 0, as I'm demonstrating here. The counter timer automatically clears when it finishes. So if we're a little bit sneaky and we tell it to start at -30 and stop at -900, this isn't something that's going to happen. What this results in is you've essentially got another fake counter free text under here. So this is how in some maps you see we've got multiple counters in the scenario. We can copy and paste this a number of times, and you'll find that if we put lots of these in, we're eventually going to hit the limit of the counters that Asian mythology can parse, and that's 5 at any one time. You'll see my fake counter has removed here. That's because I've got so many counters, it's essentially pushed it up and you can no longer see it. Apart from our counters, we've also got other text effects. So we've got the message button, and what this one does is it creates a tall message box, which is usually used in the scenarios to tell a player what the objective is. It appears here, it allows the player to close it as well, and we can also specify a timeout value on that one. The last thing I want to cover in this video is the win-lose message. So this is essentially something that you can put in big white letters right in the middle of the screen. Usually comes on when you've won the scenario. So if you wanted that, you'd then have the set player victorious or you win effect afterwards. I'm going to keep it as set player won. What this results in is a line of text underneath the victory is yours. If you wanted to have that as a temporary message and then remove it, you're going to need some slightly more advanced tricks. I haven't seen this done in any custom maps so far, but I have used it as some timings in Project Ultra when a player has time to revive and there's a countdown saying revive in 3 seconds or you lose. That's the only time I've seen that used in custom maps, apart from at the end to give an extra text there. So all of this, objectives, counters, messages, overlay text and win-lose messages, along with my previous video on chat commands, should give you quite the customization tools that you need to create detailed objectives and instructions in your scenario. I hope that's useful, and I'll see you in the next video.